Hey guys, this is Silas here with another Warlords of Draenor beta video. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the class changes to Protection Warriors. This is going to be my first video dealing with Warriors. I apologize for this video being very long, but there are a lot of changes that have happened to Protection Warriors. Abilities being removed, changed, etc. So there's a lot to go through. I'm going to be looking at the major changes, their changed abilities, their changed glyphs, their Draenor perks, and then finally their talents. So getting into it right away so I can speed up this as fast as possible. Major changes. First of all, you should know from the tanking intro video that dodge and parry have been removed from all gear, and instead you'll be getting bonus armor as a stat on that gear. However, they wanted to up the importance of critical strike and haste for Protection Warrior. So what they did is now they have a passive ability known as Riposte, which makes all of your critical strike on your gear now give parry. So parry is no longer in gear unless you have to think about it for a little bit, and then you know that all critical strike is technically parry on a gear. To address the low interest in haste for Protection Warriors, they now have an ability known as, another passive ability known as Headlong Rush, which is a passive ability for all warriors, and the haste will now reduce the global cooldown of Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, but more importantly for Protection Warriors, it reduces the cooldown of Shield Slam and Thunderclap. If I go down here, you can see that my Shield Slam, instead of it being a 6-second cooldown, it is a 5.4 second, 6 second cooldown. So that is going to be something. Now haste is more of a valuable stat. You should know that warrior stances now once again have their own action bars. If I switch back and forth between the two, you can see that I have different action bars. So that is a change that they have made back to, I can't remember if it was Cataclysm or Wrath of the Lich King, that warriors had their own action bars for everything, but it has been changed back to that method. And lastly, you should know that there's been several abilities that have been merged together. For example, Sword and Board and Devastate, and Ultimatum and Shield Slam. Basically passive abilities that affected only one ability, they just merged them directly into that ability. So you can see Shield Slam here has the critical strike, etc. with Shield Slam. So that's still baked in. That's just been baked in. So if you're looking in the passive department, you're looking in the wrong place. There is one new ability to Protection Warriors, and that is Blood Craze, and that is your multi-strikes from auto attacks trigger a Blood Craze. Blood Craze regenerates 3% of your health over 3 seconds. When this effect is refreshed, the remaining portion is added to the new effect. So it works like a dot, and the fact that dots, they stack on top of each other, and it kind of builds. Well, not all dots do that. It works like explosive shot in that when you have multiple explosive shot dots from a hunter survival spec, when you have multiple explosive shot dots, they all add together. Another example is a Fire Mage's Ignite. Those abilities all add together instead of it overriding each other like normal dots do. So your Blood Craze, let's say you get 2 Blood Crazes in a row or something like that, you'll be regenerating 6% of your health over that time span as opposed to just 3%. It does not refresh the effect, just the remaining portion is added on. So, if on the first second you have a Blood Craze, come up, and then on the second you have another Blood Craze come up, so you're up to 6% health, okay, for that second, and then the next second, and then on the 4th second, the first Blood Craze will drop off and you'll drop down to 3%, if that makes enough sense. There are several changed abilities to Protection Warriors. First is Shield Barrier. Shield Barrier used to take an additional 60% rage, and now it will only consume 40% additional rage from before. Thunderclap has been changed just a little bit. It now reduces the movement speed of all nearby enemies by 50% for 6 seconds. So that is, a nice little change to help, I guess, Protection Warriors kind of slow down their opponents. Shouts, all shouts, every shout, commanding shout, battle shout, etc., They no longer regenerate and 20 rage, and they all last for 1 hour. So you can go ahead and do your shout, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It is just like a buff in the game. So that has been, honestly, I kind of like that better. I hate all the 5-minute stuff that they've had in the game. They used to have it on several other abilities, and I'm just glad that they've gone from, I think shouts have gone from like 2 minutes to 5 minutes to finally just being an hour, full hour buff. So that is a change. Charge, you should know that charge across the board has been changed from a stun to a root. So when you charge at someone, you root them in place, you will not stun them. Hamstring now actually does damage. So it does a little bit of damage to, a class and so forth. I haven't really checked to see actually how much damage it actually does. We can go ahead and check right here. We'll put charge on the bar too, so you can see, what it actually looks like to charge in. And not much damage. I mean, I use a hamstring and compare it to a shield slam, 14k versus 1k, so it's not very much damage, but it is a decent amount of damage. It does some damage, so to say. So hamstring has gotten that little ability added to it. Heroic Strike is no longer on the global cooldown. I believe at one point it was this way, and then it was removed, and then it was removed back, so you can see I can use Heroic Strike without having to be on the global cooldown, so that is another nice change. Intervene, this is actually a pretty cool change. Intervene, you used to have to be in a party or raid for it to actually function. That is not the case anymore. There's a healing dummy over here. As you notice, I can intervene to it. And that is something that you had before. You had to be in a party or a raid to actually be able to intervene. Not the case anymore. It's just basically, it's been rewarded, so it's just you run at high speed toward an ally, intercepting them. And I believe the reduction in damage, you have to remain within 10 yards as opposed to 25, but I think the biggest portion there is that you no longer have to be in a party or raid. Heroic Throw now has an 8-yard minimum range, so you cannot Heroic Throw at point blank range anymore. And lastly, Taunt now requires defensive stance. So you have to be in defensive stance for that to work, and that will become, more. I guess you'll understand that more when we actually get to the talents, but for the most part, people aren't going to be using taunt unless they're in defensive stance, anyways. Removed abilities from the class. Berserker stance has been removed from the class as a whole. It is gone. Cleave has been removed. They have a way of kind of returning that damage ability. I mean, you still have Thunderclap, but they have another glyph that is added in the game that will help you with AoE if you so wish to choose that. Both Demoralizing Banner and Skull Banner were taken out of the game. Don't know the reasoning behind this other than that Blizzard was just cutting down the amount of banners and abilities that are in the game. There was just so many. Disarm has been removed from the game for warriors. That's across the board. Everyone's losing disarms. Rogues lost dismantle. Monks lost their, I can't remember what ability is. They even had a ranged disarm. It's all been removed from the game. So disarms out of the game. Weapon chains are out of the game. It's if it feels like a nerf, it shouldn't, because everyone's losing it anyway. So it's gone. Sunder Armor has been taken out of the game, and that's because all weakened armor debuffs have been eliminated from the game across the board. Anything that applied weakened armor debuff in the game has been removed. Sunder Armor has been removed, so you no longer have to worry about Sunder Armor anymore. Other things you should know is that Recklessness now has been removed from the game for protection only. Only Arms and Fury can get Recklessness. Rallying Cry has also been removed for protection. It is only for Arms and Fury. And also Shattering Throw has been removed from the game. I believe Arms and Fury can get it in a glyph, but not Protection. Protection's completely gone from the game. So, I had my glyph window up. It is time to take a look at the new glyphs and remove glyphs and change glyphs for the game. We will look at the new glyphs first, and then we will take a look at the changed glyphs. First new glyph you should know of is Glyph of Cleave, if I can find that it is in here. Right here, and that is your heroic strike now hits 2 targets. So that's kind of to help out with the fact that you no longer have Cleave the ability anymore. So you now have Glyph of Cleave. So that'll help with a little bit tanking, AoE tanking, etc. There is Glyph of Heroic Leap, which increases your speed by 70% for 3 seconds after using Glyph of Heroic Leap. Just like Cleave and with hindering strikes you see there, and Heroic Leap with Glyph of Death from Above, it says exclusive with. That means you can only have one active on your bar at the same time. You cannot have both active, so you can choose one or the other. You cannot have both. There is also Glyph of Mocking Banner. So as your Mocking Banner now causes creatures to attack the tank specialization player you had targeted when placing the Mocking Banner instead of attacking you. That's quite a mouthful. I honestly do not know how how it's going to be used in the game, but it's just a new glyph that they have. I'm not well versed enough in Protection Paladins to know exactly how popular that glyph will be as far as Protection Warriors are concerned. There have been several, well, around 4 or 5 changed glyphs to Warriors. First is Blitz, and you see it's exclusive with 2 glyphs. Glyphs usually, the exclusivity usually deals around 1 ability. You can see Glyph of Long Charge and Glyph of Bull Rush. That's why they have that exclusivity. Your charge can also root an additional 2 nearby targets. But I believe that is basically a wording change. It used to be because it was a stun. It's no longer a stun anymore. Now it's a root, so it's been changed for that. There is Glyph of Gag Order, which your pummel and heroic through now silence the target for 3 seconds. Does not work against players. This effect can only occur once every 15 seconds. If you're kind of unsure as to why it says can only occur once every 15 seconds, that will become clear when we actually get to the Draenor perks of Prot Pally. There is Glyph of Hindering Strikes, which your heroic strike now reduces the target's movement speed by 50%. So this no longer applies to Cleave anymore because Cleave has been removed from the game. So basically it's just heroic strikes now. And it is exclusive with Glyph of Cleave, so you're going to have to kind of choose, do you want that movement speed, reduction, or do you want, the actual Cleave and so forth. I think PvEers obviously are going to be taking the, Cleave across the board. The last changed one is Glyph of Wind and Thunder, down here at the bottom. And it increases the radius of your whirlwind and your thunderclap now by 4 yards. So that is another change to the Draenor perks. To the changed glyphs. Otherwise, if there were any removed glyphs, those removed glyphs for protection related to any of the abilities that have been removed from the game. So if there are any glyphs like applying to like Rallying Cry, etc., protection obviously can no longer get those because they can't even use them anymore. So that is, something that has not been changed at all. This leads us into the Draenor perks of the Warrior. If you look here, whoops, it's now here, excuse me. They have 4 Draenor perks. In previous videos, I've been listing off 9 Draenor perks, but they've recently decided to cut all the Draenor perks in half, and you only get them once every 2 levels now, so 92, 94, 96, 98. And that was because there were so many Draenor perks that were just flat damage increases, so they just wiped them all out, and they baked them into the abilities, and now you actually have interesting things happen for your perks. Overall, it's not a loss, so I wouldn't worry about it. The first of these is going to be improved defensive stance, which defensive stance now increases your armor by an additional 15%. There is improved heroic leap, which the damage radius of heroic leap is increased by 2 yards. There is improved heroic throw, which your heroic throw no longer has a cooldown, so that now kind of explains why the glyph of gag order has that 15-second, internal cooldown, is so that you can't just heroic throw your way to victory there. So, and then the last is the one I missed up here, which is improved block, which increases your block chance by 10%. Not the greatest of Draenor perks, but at least it's not flat damage buffs. They removed a lot of those. With that being said, that leaves us with the talents of a warrior, and the warrior really got their talent tree kind of blown up a little bit. First, we're going to take a look at Warbringer. Your Warbringer now, basically your charge now stuns its target for 1.5 seconds instead of rooting it. So basically, Warbringer, if I remember correctly, used to increase the stun on the target. Now it actually gives you a stun because now it's a root. So that has been a change to it. Second wind has changed. When you're below 35% health, you gain 10% leech, healing yourself for a percentage of the damage you deal. Overall, I believe this is going to be a huge nerf, especially to the prop pallies that would take second wind, and then we could never kill them. I don't know how popular this talent is going to be anymore. Enraged regeneration, this has been changed in the fact that effects can no longer be doubled when stunned. That was a little portion that the effects were doubled while stunned. That is not going to be the case anymore. So that is a change to enraged generation. The 45 tier for all warriors was completely blown up and just completely changed. It was the old shout tier, so staggering, piercing, and disrupting shouts are all gone, and they've been replaced with this. The first is heavy repercussions, which your shield jam deals a 50% additional damage while shield block is active. There is sudden death. Your auto attacks hits have a 10% chance to make your next execute cost no initial rage and be usable on any target regardless of health level. This should be pretty familiar to warriors in general. Sudden death was an ability in the game, and now it has been put into a talent. And then the last of these is Unyielding Strikes, which is Devastate reduces the rage cost of Heroic Strike by 6 for 6 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Once this effect reaches 5 applications, its duration will no longer refresh. Okay? So you cannot just keep, you can't permanently keep that, 5 stacks up there, that 5 application stack up there, and just decide when to use it. You gotta use it in that 6 seconds once you've hit that 5 applications. Now, as you notice, Blade Storm used to be on this tier, and it is gone. Instead, Stormbolt is on this tier. So it's just a switch in the tiers of the two. Otherwise, nothing has really changed on this tier. Mass Spell Reflect has been changed in the fact that it now replaces Spell Reflection, and its cooldown has been brought down to 30 seconds. So I believe that is to make it a little bit more of a popular talent. It does replace Spell Reflection, but bringing it down to 30 seconds would help out a lot and alleviate those things. On the 90 tier, the only thing you need to know is that Blade Storm switched spots with Stormbolt. I honestly don't know the reasoning behind this, because the 60 tier was supposed to be the tier with the AoEs, and when you remove and you put Stormbolt there, it no longer becomes that theme of the tier. Maybe the theme of the tier is now as stuns, and then they changed this to be a damage tier. I'm not sure, but that's what the changes were made. That's why the changes were made. The last of the talents are your new level 100 talents for a Protection Warrior. The first is Anger Management, which is a passive, and that is every 30 rage that you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of several of your abilities by 1 second. Avatar, Bloodbath, Blade Storm, Stormbolt, Shockwave, Dragon Roar, Mocking Banner, Heroic Leap, Shield Wall, Demoralizing Shout, and Last Stand. So that is a, kind of major change right there. We will go over here on the, we'll save that for the end. The other talent here is Ravager, which is a targeted AoE Blade Storm, basically. So watch this. This does ridiculous damage. I'm just going to launch this here, and you'll see this weapon fly around and do its damage, as you can see right there. Plenty of damage. Really like that that animation. And the cool thing is, for warriors, if you are not a warrior, due to the new graphics changes that they've made so that they kind of omit spell visuals that you really don't need to see much, it's kind of hard to see Ravager on screen. So unless you have your graphics set up, you might be able to get a Ravager off, and people won't notice very well that Ravager is going on. The most important talent, and the one that people really only care about for Protection Warriors, is going to be Gladiator's Resolve. And Gladiator's Resolve, I can't switch it to it yet because Ravager's still on cooldown, but it increases the damage reduction provided by defensive stance by 5%. So it gives you some benefit for your defensive stance. And allows you to forego your defensive role and instead focus on offensive capabilities by replacing Battle Stance with Gladiator Stance. Your Gladiator Stance is a dauntless combat stance. It increases your physical damage dealt by 20% and replaces your shield block with shield charge. You cannot change into or out of this stance during combat. So take a look at Shield Slam here. Slam you slam the enemy with your shield for, oh, sorry, it changes shield block, excuse me. Shield block is, your absorption that you use for defensive capabilities as a protection paladin. Well, they basically changed that so that you have an offensive capability now. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. You can see I'm going to switch into Gladiator Stance here. And I believe because of the changes to stances, it's going to ruin my entire bar. So you can see my switch into Gladiator Stance there. And we'll go ahead and open this up and get some of the, just some basic abilities on the bar here. So we can take a look at, Shield Slam, the kind of damage it does. And we do want to look at the brand new Shield Charge that was brought in. Shield Charge is basically a very small 2-charge, 15-second recharge way of... It's kind of a mini gap closer, so to say. So I'm in, my stance here. And I can go back here. And it's got a 10-yard range. It's small, but it's still a gap closer. It just gets you in range of the target, and that's the whole purpose of it. Now, right now, they intend for this to actually be a legitimate source of damage in the game. So, right now, the simulations that have been done, gladiators are actually doing better. They're the worst of the warrior specs. So the warrior specs, the other warrior PvP damage specs are above it, but it's beating every single spec in the game except for Ret Pallies and I believe Frost DKs and Frost Mages. Those are the only specs that it's not beating. So they fully intend for this to be a DPS paladin, a DPS prot warrior. So now I think it's very viable to see a prot warrior in a BG, even as defensive or gladiator stance. I can switch back and forth between two. If you're trying to guard a flag, you can switch over into gladiator stance and, deal with it there. Or, you can switch into protection stance and have a little bit more defensive capabilities. Or you can switch over into gladiator stance and actually, not have the take as much. You'll be able to do more damage than you would normally. Now, the only issue I see with this is also in the tanking video I mentioned that tanking specs will be taking 25% additional damage in PvP combat. Well, I don't know yet if they're going to change gladiator stance so that your physical, your defensive capabilities in PvP are increased by 25% to kind of even back that playing field. I don't know if they're going to change that. Otherwise, you could be a pally that can do a lot of damage, but you also take more damage than any other DPS spec in the game. So we'll see how that goes. Well, that is everything to deal with Protection Warriors. I was honestly expecting this to be a whole lot longer than it actually was. To be honest, I was expecting it to be in the 25-30 minute range. When I was getting all the information together, it was really long, but it wasn't as bad. I think the most exciting thing for Protection Warriors is going to be that Gladiator stance, and people are going to be, I guarantee you, there are going to be a lot of people using that stance, because you're going to be able to bring all the utility of a Protection Warrior, but at the same time, you'll be able to dish out some serious damage. So that's really cool. The next videos I'm going to be looking into are finally the other warrior videos, so we'll take a look at arms and fury and how they have changed from Warlords of Draenor, because I feel they're in a spot to where they will not be changing them much anymore. So, otherwise, hope to see you guys in the next video. I'll see you later. Tearless out.